Okay, we know secret societies deal with tradition. Okay? Do I have to explain to you how Masons do ceremonies they've been doing for a long time, hundreds of years in some cases, how they deal with tradition? Okay, I don't think anybody has a problem with me saying that. These are groups that are big on ceremony, tradition, and ritual. So, it is fair to say that if we go back a few hundred years and look at what history can tell us about the behavior and the tactics of secret societies, that it reflects what we see today. It is a fair explanation of what we see going on today, or what you would expect. Let's stick to what you would expect, because I think that, nobody has a problem with that. So, I'm going to read you from the book. I didn't want to do this. I was trying to minimize how much I read, but this has to be said. On page 107, the paragraph's called Enslaved Honor. Excuse me, the chapter's called Enslaved Honor. The paragraph is titled Tricknology. Remember, Hermes, the trickster. The devil, the trickster. Jordan Maxwell has a book called That Old Time Religion. These African American closed societies perpetuated what they termed the old time religion, and they utilized an arsenal that included both knocking and kicking and root doctoring. Now, root doctors are almost synonymous, or basically synonymous with, medicine men. This association linked the martial art and medical knowledge together as parallel means of attaining power. It was not uncommon for bonded fighters to rely on sacred medicines provided by elders of the old-time religion or root doctors in general. Conversely, elders of the old-time religion societies who served roles akin to those of root doctors also relied on knocking and kicking for their physical protection. Now, in the past, I talked about how martial arts are inseparable from Egyptian religion, Egyptian mythology. This actually proves that. This proves a lot of things I've been saying all in one. And I'll tell you exactly why this is more than just a book after I'm done here. According to Gwaltney, right on point, he has a lot of valid sources at the bottom line. The original use of knocking and kicking was holy. It was to defend the elders of the old-time religion. The closed societies of families following the old-time religion would continue to perpetuate the martial art in the 20th century, explaining the closed nature of the art. Closed is pretty much synonymous for secret, especially in this sense, in this context. While certain aspects of the art, particularly headbutting, were practiced widely in the bonded community, after emancipation, the complete art was often hidden from other blacks as well as whites. Willie Nelson explained that not everyone used to do it, just certain circles of blacks. And as a boy, he was afraid to cross those who knew it. Practitioners at the end of the last decade still use separate terms to distinguish between blacks in general and blacks tied to the remnants of these closed societies. As the historian Herman Carter explained, the world didn't know about it, but they brought knocking and kicking from Africa and disguised it in the context of religion to cover it up, to keep the white man from getting at it. And that was their weapon to fight with. They couldn't have any guns or weapons to fight with and to defend themselves. They had to use something, so they used knocking and kicking. It was mostly a secret undercover thing for the slave because this was his way of defense. But see, if he could have carried it out in the open like karate and the martial arts from Asia, it would have been a momentous thing. But this was undercover, and most of it you didn't hear about. Over here, America, they didn't pass it around, only in the secret ranks that they were training under them. Secret societies, closed societies. Gwaltney defines knocking and kicking as the ancient martial art practiced by slave clergy and their followers. This clergy of elders encouraged the open practice of the art only in their clandestine gatherings. As Jonathan David describes them, these societies consisted of cults organized around local extended families that met also in larger public festivals. These larger yet still clandestine festivals were often referred to as drum meetings. The fact that in these ritual contexts, kicking contests included physical inversions, together with the continued association of inversion with the crossing of the water, suggests the possibility that knocking and kicking may at one time have continued to serve a ritual function in the old-time religion by assessing spiritual power from across the Kalunga. Now, what a lot of you do not understand is that these secret societies and cults predate European secret societies and cults, known ones, by thousands of years. I will go back to referencing Illuminati Part 1. Okay? Not only am I right about where the ancient and occult and esoteric knowledge comes from, I am right by thousands of years. Anyway, though these old-time religion societies, knocking and kicking was linked to a larger arsenal of psychological and spiritual weaponry, old-time religion societies promoted many spiritual traditions such as wood carving, drumming, and herbal healing. Yet given the harshness of bondage, at the forefront of these societies was a set of tools that allowed bondsmen to exercise some semblance of power in relation to white society. So you have these secret societies that are there to exert power, and they deal with medicine, pharmacology, they deal with religion, witchcraft, and martial arts, medicine, okay? Yet given the harshness of bondage, at the forefront of these societies was a set of tools that allowed, I read that already. According to Gwaltney, these societies were the social cult which black people created to free themselves from the wickedry of whites. Whites were understood to have employed powerful witchcraft, evil, and deception in the enactment of the transatlantic slave trade. This was often coded into stories passed down in North America about the experience of individuals having been tricked into boats by white sailors or their African agents using red cloths. Not meant to be understood literally, these accounts document the collective moral judgment of the essential wickedness enacted by Europeans in the slave trade. As a result of this evil committed by whites that was akin to witchcraft, Africans found themselves cast into the horrors of racial slavery, where they were systematically disempowered in perpetual bondage. In order to counter the wickedness, members of the old-time religion societies often turned to an arsenal of redemptive violence that included knocking and kicking, poisoning, and root doctoring from the African and African American perspective. The latter two were inseparable, and all three worked in conjunction with the bonded philosophy of defense through the art of trickery, which here will be referred to tricknology. Okay. Trickery provided a theory of resistance through the continuation of and elaboration of African tricksterism, as portrayed in the model of the African and African American trickster hero. As one bondsman recalled, the only weapon of self-defense I used successfully was that of deception. So resonant was this concept of tricknology that a Central African proverb relating to it was passed on in the black communities of North America. Low Country bondsmen repeated the proverb in its entirety, or just the essential phrase, "Kum Yali, Kum Buba Tambe," meaning, "He is tricky, so I will win by being tricky too." In the 19th century, when numbers of African-born were dropping significantly in relation to those of American-born blacks, Africans were closely associated with root doctoring, and African languages were believed to have spiritual power. This proverb was utilized ritually as an incantation in a process that was believed to allow certain Africans to literally fly back across the Kalunga to Africa. While many Africans were believed to have this power, the gift could also be passed on to American-born blacks through incantations such as this. However, for the majority of the bonded community who would have to wait until their funerals to pass back across the Kalunga, the assertion and philosophy behind the proverb provided a blueprint for overcoming the obstacles of life in bondage. See, how much more do I want to read? I'm running out of time here. I only got 4 minutes. So basically, let's see if I can wrap this up. In order to counter the wickedness, members of the old-time religious societies often turned to an arsenal of redemptive violence that included knocking and kicking, poisoning, and root doctoring. Since I'm almost out of time, let me thoroughly explore this and read it one more time. In order to counter this wickedness, members of the old-time religious societies often turned to an arsenal of redemptive violence that included knocking and kicking, poisoning, and root doctoring. So who are the secret societies today? Well, we have the Prince Hall Masons, which were around during this time. If I believe the Prince Hall Masons were around in the late 18th century, and we are talking about the late 19th century, so there were Freemasons doing this too on record. Say it with me. On record, there were Freemasons in the 19th century, in the end of the 19th century, that were using redemptive violence that included martial arts, poisoning, and pharmacology/medicine. Okay? So what have I been saying that's been going on here for a while? I'm saying mental health is infested with secret societies who are using pharmacology, medicine, trying to downplay the significance of my martial arts achievements, and they're practicing a form of revenge, of persecution against me because of what I've said to offend them. Okay? On record, this is what they do. Do not be surprised when a bunch of demonic secret societies who practice witchcraft on fucking record, on record, on record, on record, on record, do what they historically do, using the evolution of medicine and technology. I mean, do I have to explain to a bunch of government dogs, a bunch of gang-stalking trash, a bunch of bootlickers, while people who have been doing something for hundreds of years are doing it right now? Do I really have to explain the significance of martial arts in the occult closed societies, in the secret societies, in the old-time religion society world, when on record it could be no other way? By me being the top martial artist, I am challenging the hierarchy of the old-time religious societies simply by existing. They will stop at nothing to sabotage and to suppress the truth of my martial art transcendence and achievement. You sniveling dogs who do not understand how society really works. On record, there are secret societies in the African American community that have been there for 400 fucking years in the Americas. And they were placed there for the purpose of controlling black society as their own secret government, and they mirror, and they were made from the white secret society, secret government that has been there since perhaps the 14th century, which, ironically, got the idea from a bunch of Roman, Babylonian, and Greek scum, who in turn got the idea from Africans in Egypt. On record! Look at the amalgamation that took place with Apis and all the other deities, and how they adopted Hermes and the Hermetic orders, when Hermes was supposedly said to be a priest who was into the occult in Egypt. On record. Do I have to explain to a bunch of ignoramuses about how I've been historically accurate for 6 years on YouTube alone, while you've been sucking dick, kissing ass, pushing shit, and bowing down to satanic filth? How am I supposed to feel about it, you sniveling dogs? read the book Fighting for Honor. Go to page 108. Read the last paragraph, and I'll end it by reading it quickly. I have 10 seconds. In order to counter the wickedness, members of the old-time religious societies often turn to an arsenal of redemptive violence. They include knocking and kicking, poisoning, and root doctoring.